And Texas is one of the few states where the law presumes every record to be open unless proven otherwise.
Open and accessible, two principles that Missy Carey, General Counsel for the Texas Attorney General's office, says her state strives for with public records.
I think if an Attorney General shows a commitment, which our Attorney General clearly has here, to this cause, then it helps all citizens get the information they need at all levels.
By law, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott is the interpreter, the enforcer, and the trainer, creating uniformity among government bodies handling public records statewide.
If you ask one police department in Marfa, Texas for something, and you ask one police department in Beaumont, ideally you will be getting the same information and the same rules will apply.
And anytime records requests are denied.
Here, all requests for information that are denied, except in very limited circumstances, come through the Attorney General for ruling. And so that consistency will be across boards. We want to make sure that you don't always have to go to court in Texas to get the records that you need.
In contrast to the Texas Attorney General, who helps people get records, Colorado's Attorney General serves as the lawyer for state agencies who want to deny requests.
Colorado's Attorney General using your tax dollars to take 7 News to court to stop us from getting consumer complaints they want to keep secret.
In June, 7 News requested consumer complaints filed with the AG's office against a Colorado-based company. But instead of providing the information, as states like Tennessee, Ohio, and Texas did, our requests were denied, and Attorney General John Suthers filed suit, taking 7 News to court, trying to keep the records closed.
So that would not happen to you here, because in Texas there's a law that says you cannot take a requester to court.
The fact that Colorado is a state where citizens have little recourse other than going to court has resulted in low transparency ratings from national studies.
Colorado is one of those states where there's nothing between asking, screaming, and suing.
Ken Bunting is the executive director of the National Freedom of Information Coalition at the University of Missouri School of Journalism.
It should be easy. It should be available at the touch of a fingertip. But unfortunately, every last one of our states and the federal government has exemptions and exceptions and loopholes that make access to information much too difficult.
In 2007, the National Coalition, along with the Better Government Association, gave Colorado a C for officials' responsiveness to requests.
It matters because self-government doesn't work without access to information.
Carey says the strength in Texas law is that it ensures the public and the media have equal access to records. And it's often the media filing requests to find critical information for viewers and readers.
The victim in a string of downtown Denver attacks is speaking out.
In 2009, after a series of assaults in Lodo, 7 News wanted to know if there were additional attacks Denver police weren't acknowledging. DPD denied our request, saying the documents were contrary to the public interest.
Felix Trujillo, still on the run right now and considered armed and dangerous.
And just this summer, 7 News was investigating what led up to an inmate's escape from a Denver County jail. We requested copies of his videotaped visits in the months before the jailbreak. But that request was also denied, saying the records were, quote, contrary to the public interest.
And that's the beauty of our system. It's not up to the agency to decide what's contrary to their interest. The Attorney General's office has that final say.
In the inmate video case, the city said it was denying the request because it had, quote, an obligation in protecting inmates' privacy rights. Surprisingly, DPD also used privacy rights to deny an alleged rape victim the investigative reports about her own assault.
It's the worst thing that can happen. It's the nightmare that you hear about.
At just 16 years old, Michelle says she was sexually assaulted by 2 classmates she thought were her friends.
And I was saying no, I was crying, and I was begging for them to stop, and none of that seemed to matter.
Her case was initially dropped last year, but she wanted to know whether Denver police conducted a thorough investigation.
Have you been able to look at your police report?
No, I can't access it, nor can my attorney. nor can anyone.
Denied her own police report. Michelle says DPD told her attorney they needed notarized releases from the suspects' parents and copies of their birth certificates because the suspects were juveniles.
Of all the people that should have my report or should have the right to have it, it should be me because it's my story.
Denials come in different forms. Sometimes agencies make obtaining the records too expensive instead.
You know, the department wanted to charge us $25,000 for these records.
When Call 7 investigators asked Jefferson County for the number of rape kits the sheriff's investigators tested, the bill was $24,460.
Well, there was a rough estimate of how many hours this could take based on an hour per case.
Initially, Jefferson County said finding out how many rape kits it tested was useless information. But when we arrived for an interview last year about the excessive costs, Jefferson County had already decided to research the numbers for themselves and provided some information for free.
We knew it could be much less or it could be more. We didn't know. So we've spent well over a month of 2 deputies working nonstop to get the numbers refreshed that we've got.
We have a report of the 737 down on the 34 right.
And in 2008, when the Call 7 investigators were exposing slow response times from Denver Health ambulances, including a 33-minute delay before an ambulance arrived at a commercial jet crash, Denver Health wanted nearly $30,000 for the records. Exorbitant costs make it impossible for average citizens like Lance Highland to access public information.
I felt that there was some bias along with sloppiness and incompetence on the police department's side.
Highland is fighting the city of Glendale to find out if police treated him and his partner, Jesse Salazar, fairly.
There was no other alternative but to believe that it was based on bias, based on our sexuality.
In 2012, one of Highland and Salazar's foster children accused Salazar of sexual misconduct. The couple says the child had a history of manipulative behavior and retaliated when they decided not to adopt him. At Salazar's first court hearing, the misdemeanor charge was dropped.
These incidents didn't occur. I gave her the background of the child, that he was manipulative, that he had a professional diagnosis of being a storyteller.
Highland believes investigators prejudged them because they're gay. So he filed an open records request with Glendale Police, trying to confirm his suspicions.
The first core I asked for, and it was sometime in November of 2012, I asked for emails of about 7 employees, and that's when I received a letter from the Deputy City Manager, Chuck Line, that my proposal was too broad and that I'd have to put down $5,000.
Highland tried to come up with a request he thought would be easier for the city to fulfill, but instead, the fees for the records continued to grow.
So $25,000, can you afford that?
No. And I immediately saw it as just financial intimidation.
If you receive an estimate like that in Texas, you can complain formally in writing to the Attorney General's office, and your complaint will be analyzed. You can also informally complain. Again, you can call the hotline and say, I believe I got an estimate that was way too high, and I want this bill checked.
Carrie says in Texas, working as a mediator between the agency and the requester helps to resolve disputes, ultimately making the government more open to the people. But in Colorado, no such system exists.
I know other states don't have attorneys general that have this interpreter, mediator, enforcer role. And I think that's a very valuable role for someone to have. And I know other countries and states have wanted to emulate that.
The city of Glendale declined an on-camera interview, citing the possibility of a lawsuit. But Deputy City Manager Line told 7 News that Glendale's computer contractor charges $125 an hour. And he says taxpayers shouldn't have to pick up that expense.
So the bottom line is, if I put down $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, I'll never get those emails.
Highland wishes Colorado had an open record system with more accountability. But short of spending even more time and money on a lawsuit, he doubts he'll ever get the records from Glendale.
They have unlimited resources. Ordinary citizens generally don't. And they feel that if they give some outrageous fee, that the citizen is not going to be able to pay it, and he or she's just going to go away.
We're not carrying a torch for secrecy.
The man representing cities in Colorado defends the way public officials allow access to public records.
We don't fail to release records because we just get off on hassling people.